Being an emergency, we do have a printed piece.
Yes, you will very shortly.
Excellent. It is 6:30, and I'd like to call this meeting of council to order and acknowledge that the city of Winkler is situated on Treaty 1 land, the home of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that have been made on these territories and acknowledge that there have been many harms and mistakes in the past, but today we dedicate ourselves to a future based on respect of all peoples, including Indigenous communities, in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration, moving forward to a harmonious, prosperous future together. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular council meeting of March 25th, 2025 be adopted. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Marvin.
Any additions or changes to that agenda? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 11th, 2025 be adopted. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Ryan.
Those minutes are attached. You've had an opportunity to review them. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All in favor? And that is carried. That takes us into our finance. Be it resolved that the accounts payable in the amount of $654,014.46 as approved by the Finance Committee be approved for payment. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Don.
As always, your check register is attached for your review. Anybody have any questions on what you see?
I do not.
There's one explanation there as well in your shared notes. All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that the financial report and statements for 2024 be received for information. Mover?
Peter.
Second.
Ryan.
Ryan beat you to it. Very good summary, very good detail, lots of information there. Everybody's had a chance to review it.
Yep.
Any
Very
questions on what you see?
Very helpful, that detail. Thank you.
I would very much like to thank David, our Director of Corporate Services, for preparing that level of detail and that explanation that's very easy to follow.
Yeah.
All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that pursuant to bylaw number 2028-11 of the City of Winkler Tax E-Service be appointed to manage the property tax arrears recovery for the City of Winkler. Be it further resolved that pursuant to bylaw number 2028-11 of the City of Winkler, the following individuals be appointed tax sale managers for the City of Winkler: Donna Zinkyu, Vice President of Tax E-Service, or Tyler Burnside, Associate of Tax E-Service, Inc. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Don.
Jody, would you explain this one for us a little bit just to make sure we know exactly what we're looking at?
Yep. If you go back to the bylaw, which goes back to one that was passed in 2011, that's what and we kind of call it the tax sale manager bylaw. And that there we refer back to the Municipal Act, where council has the ability to establish different positions to carry out the powers and duties of a designated officer for the purposes of the tax sale. And so each year we pass a resolution to say who is going to be doing that work for the City of Winkler. So essentially we're passing those powers on to these two individuals that work for Tax Service, Inc.
Perfect. Not seeing any comments around the table. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that accommodation tax bylaw number 2328-24 be given first reading. Mover.
Marvin.
Michael got it, Marvin got the second. This obviously puts this thing back on the floor. There's some correction needed in terms of exactly the flow of the bylaw to make sure that it fits with how the province would like to see it presented. So we'll run through the process again to make sure that we know exactly where we are and that we have dotted the i's and crossed the t's the way the province would like us to do that. Jody, is there any additional explanation needed at this point?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll send it in and make sure it meets their satisfaction, and then we'll move on.
Excellent. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the minutes for the Fire Committee meeting of March 12th, 2025 be adopted. Mover?
Michael?
Second?
Ryan.
Anything there we should be aware of?
Nothing really new there. I think the one nice development, they continue to move forward on trying to implement a medical first response system, which would allow the firefighters with the appropriate training to step in with a certain level of care in the instances where ambulances are delayed and not there as promptly as the fire department.
Okay. And as you will note as well, that medical first response guide to service levels is attached for
Yeah.
review. It's a riveting 26-page read. Further comments? All in favor? Carried.
Henry, may I just check on one correction? David, you're saying noticing the wrong bylaw number? Is that right?
The old one was entitled, so I fixed it now. But I don't know if you want to reread it.
Oh, so the resolution,
Yeah.
okay.
It's been updated.
So we had the wrong title on
For
the,
those that may be watching on online and are not in chambers and don't hear the corrections being presented to us, the bylaw is slightly different. It was labeled incorrectly here. We read it incorrectly. In order to make sure that we do it right, the preference would be for us to read the correct bylaw number
Yeah.
into the minutes.
which
So
you should
then
have, it
is there now.
It is there now.
Yes. Bylaw number
2346.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2346-25, the accommodation tax, be given first reading. Mover?
Michael?
Thank you.
Marvin?
Same two, move in second. Same information, just the correct bylaw number now. Is everyone in favor? And
Thank you.
that is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will then continue, and there's a letter there from the Office of the Fire Commissioner as part of those minutes as well. It's, I think it's somewhat interesting, and I don't know, Jody, if any action is needed from our part on that. The list of sites that they have there that may not meet that January 1st, 2026 deadline, there's a local facility that's on that list.
Yep.
I don't believe that that comes to here. It's important for us to be aware of, but I would imagine that that facility will be working with the Office of the Fire Commissioner to make those changes to the best of their ability, recognizing that there are several pages of other provincial
Yeah.
facilities that Shared Health manages that'll be tough to do.
Yeah, I think the challenge there is that this is a requirement from the province. It doesn't come with funding, but they're expected to do it. And the other twist a little bit is that it is something that's under the authority of the Office of the Fire Commissioner. However, they're passing on the enforcement to the local authorities. And so that's why it came up at our fire committee. So it's a bit of a difficult position to be in, but it's now expected that each municipality will do the enforcement on behalf of the Office of the Fire Commission.
Recognizing that that is in all of the communities around us, I suspect those conversations are being had by each one of those authorities to find out how they will manage that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I sit on the Salem board
Yes, sir.
for one of the owner churches, and as far as I know, the province will be paying the capital for all of the fire suppression installations.
The challenge, of course, will be the
Timing
will be
meeting the
timing, yeah.
deadline.
But they themselves have committed to
Oh, wow.
putting all that in, as far as I know.
There's lots of them that need to be
Yeah,
done.
yeah, that's huge.
Because it's not part of our normal operations
Yeah,
budget.
no,
right?
exactly.
It's-
And I noticed with interest that Boundary Trails is not on there, but Bethesda is. So I'm assuming Boundary Trails then has all of
They
the
will
fire-
already have
More
everything in
recently
place.
built.
yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so no action from our part right now, other than to be aware of, and the fact that we have two jurisdictions somewhat crossing over and then handing it off to us to deal with.
Indeed.
Very nice.
I
You'll
think
keep
that-
us updated,
Yeah, and
Jody,
as he stated, that is not, or it is our opinion that that is not the place where it should be dealt with.
Correct.
It should be with the Office of the Fire Commissioner, so.
Okay, we will continue to see how that walks out over the course of this next year. Continuing then to transportation and utilities. Be it resolved that the City of Winkler Council authorizes Manitoba Hydro to make the following changes to the street lighting system at the Parks Phase 2 subdivision on Yellowstone Trail in Winkler. Install 5 60-watt streetlights along Glacier Way. 5 lights are billed at $14.71 per month per light. This will increase our annual streetlight cost by $882.60. Mover?
Marvin?
Right.
Don Friesen got it, Marvin got the second. Your maps are attached. Any thoughts?
I'm impressed by the fact that these are 60-watt lights.
Indeed. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2344-25, the vehicle for hire bylaw amendment, be given first reading. Mover?
Peter?
Second.
Michael?
Thank you. This is there. This will create the process for bylaw, or for reading second and third, but this puts it on the agenda and allows the work that needs to happen around it. It is attached if you have any questions. Typically, outside of that, we strictly put it on the floor that allows the rest of the process to happen. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the swamp minutes for the March 18th, 2025 meeting be received for information. Mover.
Peter?
Second.
Michael?
Minutes are attached. Is there anything we should be looking at particularly closely, Peter?
No, we have the application in to change our license so we can compost. Compost is starting to come in. We're stacking it up, waiting to process it, and with the amount of tonnage coming in, it'll be sooner than later that we're going to have to do some expansion cells.
So with the application having gone in, do we have any kind of a timeline on how quick we anticipate approval?
We're hoping to start moving dirt as soon as the frost comes out. We have
Okay.
a firm that's looking after that for us to make sure everything, the application went in smoothly, so we're just waiting for the Environment Office to give us some direction.
Excellent.
Otherwise, full speed ahead.
Beautiful. Not seeing anything further. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the Winkler and District Healthcare Board meeting minutes for the January 27th, 2025 and the February 24th, 2025 meetings be received for information. Mover.
Marvin?
Second.
Don?
Anything there that bears mentioning outside of the minutes that we see?
Well, I think it's, the minutes show that that the Healthcare Board, in addition to managing the clinic building and providing space for physician groups, we also have a wider mandate, and you will see some of the information that we have about the medical center, but also Salem Home. Councillor Fraze here was already talking about his role in a different era, but Salem Home is part of that group as well. Eden Health Services is part of the group. So the purpose of the healthcare board is to provide an umbrella or be an umbrella organization that can bring more good services to our citizens. So I just wanted to highlight those two additions.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2337-25, a bylaw for a road opening for Norland Drive, be given first reading. Mover?
Don?
Second?
Ryan.
Thoughts or comments? The maps show you where it is. All in favor? Carried.
Just 11 by 1.
How about that? Thank you, Andrew. We'll take one step back to an item that I just missed. Be it resolved that the MSTW minutes and reports for February 2025 be received for information. Mover.
Don?
Second.
Michael?
Again, the reports are there, the minutes are there. Do we have any questions or comments on them?
I think still pretty slow start to the season, and like Glenn has said before, I think everybody's cautiously optimistic. So, talked to a local realtor this today, and he was saying that single-family lots are selling like hotcakes.
Really?
So he says he figures you'll see back to single-family homes again, which is we hadn't seen much for over the years. So that's good to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good
We
to
still
see.
have a desperate need for housing, and
Yeah.
that thought that cautiously optimistic is going to quickly turn into building
Yep.
would be encouraging.
So it's good.
All in favor? Carried. That then takes us to bylaw number 2336-25, which is the road closing for Russet Road. Be it resolved that we give that bylaw first reading. Mover?
Peter?
Second?
Michael?
We don't have a whole bunch of road closings, Jody, so I'm wondering if you could maybe just explain that one a little bit. If anybody gets confused why in a very growing community like ours, we would be closing roads.
And this one, the map doesn't really show up.
And the
In
map
fact,
is-
we're closing a road that never existed, but it existed on paper. So when we created the Clover Creek Industrial Development, it included plans for what amounted to a service road just on the south side of Highway 14 in Clover Creek. And because of the way the land sales went, and companies buying large portions of land right up to the highway, that negated the reason for Russet. And this portion was a residual that a subdivision had to get finalized before we would know the size of this residual piece, which included a portion of Russet Road. So this is to do the final closing of that portion.
Nice to see that we sold lots so fast that we never even had a chance to put the street in. And that
Indeed.
gave us an opportunity to sell a larger lot to a business
That's right.
that wants to grow into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the minutes for the Planning Committee meeting of March 11th, 2025 be adopted. Mover.
Don?
Second.
Ryan.
Again, minutes are attached. Anything we should take particular note of or anything that we have questions for?
I think just a little, some zoning bylaw amendments and stuff like that, which just seems like an ongoing thing. Winkler on-demand transit seems to be going well and people are enjoying it, so.
Month after month growth every single
Yeah,
month.
which is
That's
good to
so
see.
good.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the Central Manitoba Tourism February report and minutes for the March 10th, 2025 meeting be received for information. Mover?
Michael?
Second.
I can help.
Thank you. Jody got there, sorry, Marvin got the second. Any questions on what you see? Fairly straightforward, Michael?
Yep. We've got the visitor's guide, tourism guide coming out this spring, so we should start seeing those around our community and other communities. And
Okay. Lots of things to do. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the Explorer Morton Winkler meeting minutes for the February 27th, 2025 meeting be received for information. Mover?
Michael,
Second.
Peter,
Peter got that one. Thank you.
that'd be fast.
Yes, you did. Fairly brief minutes.
Yeah.
Anything there that we should be aware of outside of that?
not much to be aware of. I know Peter continues to do what he can to help the organization in his downtime, and
Good.
yeah, some ideas that were thrown around, and that was kind of the extent of that meeting.
Sounds good. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the report for Winkler Arts and Culture Report for February 2025 be received for information. Mover?
Don?
Second.
Ryan.
Again, minutes are attached. Any questions or comments?
I'm not sure if anybody saw the Shirley Elias, but she's was a local, homegrown, who's become a successful artist and brought her paintings here, which was good.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. That takes us to the Morton District Vet Care Board resolution. There's a couple of whereases there. The roof is in desperate need of repairs. The board can contribute about $50,000 toward that project. They're going to have to take on a loan for the difference. They need a council resolution to support that. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Winkler Council support the Morton District Vet Board to secure financing for a roof replacement. Mover.
Michael?
Second.
Marvin?
Again, a regional vet board looking after stuff and running into a situation that they need to make sure that building maintenance is looked after. We are a partner, as are most of our neighbors here. Any additional thoughts or questions on it?
So-
This does not extend our obligation past our normal contributions, correct, Jody?
Correct.
Okay, this is just support for them to be able to
Yeah.
do
Right.
that.
Yeah, that was my question, yeah.
Excellent. Seeing nothing further, all in favor? Carried. That will move us into delegations and hearings. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding public hearings. Mover.
Ryan.
Second.
Peter,
All in favor? Carried. Public hearing for variance number VA 2025-004 at 40 Park Meadow Drive. Jody, if you would.
And we do have a number of public hearings today, 3. 2 of them are planning related, and the third one is for our financial plan. On any of these public hearings, once we've opened it, the chair will allow opportunity for those who wish to speak for or against. And if you do wish to do so, we ask that you come up to the podium and the microphone and state your name and address, and then you can speak to the matter. The first one here, as mentioned, is for variation 2025-004. Applicant is Steve Harder on behalf of owners Stephen and Jesse Harder at 40 Park Meadow Drive. The variance requested is to decrease the required interior side yard on the east from 5 feet to 3.5 feet in the R1 zone. And the purpose is in order to construct an accessory building that better aligns with the existing driveway and that saves space in the backyard. No objections to this application have been received by our office. And yeah, other than that, I think our staff see no issue with this.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. I'll ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this.
my property.
The proponent is in chambers and has mentioned that he's here and prepared to answer questions if need be. but no comments outside of that.
So this is a garage behind the house?
Correct.
Okay.
It would be behind the house.
I would ask if you're going to speak that you please come to the microphone.
What, are we getting popcorn in here or what?
Wow.
Yeah, so it is like in the backyard, it is behind the property, behind the house.
So this shed that's on there too, that's going to be new as well?
No, it's gonna be relocated.
Oh, so you're moving the one that's on there already?
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
shed there, you can see it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a 10 by 12 shed.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I don't know why anybody would put a shed in that location, but they did.
Okay. Fair enough.
We moved to another corner of the property in the
Okay.
backyard.
Right on.
Any additional questions or comments? Nope. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak to this? Either for or against? I don't see anybody else in chambers. Council have any additional questions before we close the hearing? Be it resolved that the public hearing for variance application number BA 2025-004 be closed. Mover?
Ryan.
Peter got it, Ryan got the second. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that council approve variation number VA 2025-004. Mover?
Don?
Second.
Ryan.
Additional questions or thoughts? All in favor? Carried. Jody, I would like the minutes to show that I've asked to be excused from this next hearing. This hearing has nothing to do with me personally. It is for Pride Signs. I'm not in any way, shape, or form involved with Pride Signs, but I am personally in my private life in the signage business, and as such, I believe it would be best to excuse myself from this hearing.
It will be so noted.
Thank you. I will hand the chair to Deputy Andrew Fraze.
Here's Andrew. Okay, so public hearing for conditional use number CU 2025-001 at 631 PTH 14. Jody?
Yep, applicant here is Pride Signs. Owner is Estate Enterprises Limited, as stated at 631 on Highway 14. That is the Wendy's location. The zoning there is commercial general. The request is to allow a digital sign to remain in its current location there in the CG zone. And the purpose here is that a sign which incorporates digital technology is a conditional use in the CG zone. Therefore, this application was made. And you see some of the specifications of the sign attached as supporting documents. You see a report to council on this application. There's TAC guidelines that apply for signs such as these. There's also MTI, which has already approved it, have some standards as well that go a little bit beyond the TAC standards, but that's for MTI to manage and monitor. And so from the perspective of staff, it was recommended that council approve this conditional use.
Thank you, Jody. Anyone here willing to or wanting to speak to this item? Anyone online? Okay. Any comments from council before we close this? Make sure I'm on the right one here. Okay. Be it resolved that the public hearing for conditional use application CU 2025-001 be closed. Mover?
Ryan.
Seconder?
Marvin?
All in favor? That is carried. We want to call Henry back in? Oh, I got to prove it first.
Yeah.
Be it resolved that council approve conditional use number CU 2025-001 subject to compliance with TAC recommendations as it pertains to the use of digital signs. Mover?
Michael?
Seconder?
Peter?
All in favor? That is carried. Henry is welcome back in.
want to be the center of attention.
Boy, this guy just
Yeah.
takes ownership right away.
Just moves right out of the way.
It's like he owns the place or something.
That's what we put up with.
Yeah.
I like to face both sides.
Can't not.
Well, I would only look at you.
So that does take us to the public hearing for our 2025 financial plan. It'll be presented by David Martins, who's our Director of Corporate Services. City Manager Jody Penner and David Martins have spent a lot of time guiding both council and their staff to this place. We're very happy today to present this plan to the community. Very little drama left at this point in time. We have some time ago already stated where we are and financially what those budget numbers are. But today we're going to hear from David the details behind that plan. So without further ado, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, as you can see, I'd like to first of all welcome everyone to the 2025 financial plan for the City of Winkler. In this plan, we will talk somewhat about the assessment changes. We'll talk about millage changes. We'll talk about, at the end, what does that mean on my tax bill. And at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, absolutely, we would have time for that as well. So 2025 was, or is, I should say, is a reassessment year. And as you can see now on this chart here, overall assessment for the City of Winkler increased by 9.2%. And this is the growth only. This is not now what the City of Winkler saw in additional building permits. It's just basically if you would take 2024 over 2025, overall the assessment went up by 9.2%. And on the commercial side, it was slightly lower than on the residential side. On the commercial side, we saw a 7.7% increase. On the residential side, we saw a 10.2%. And this is important to note because later on, when we will talk about an average tax increase, you will notice that the residential tax increase is slightly above the commercial. And the reason is because of the assessment change. The assessment change increased more on residential than on the commercial side. And then since we're applying the same mill rate to the residential as we do to the commercial, we end up with a slight different tax increase and a slight higher tax increase on residential than on the commercial property for 2025. Overall, the total properties are being divided up that 63% is residential, 25% is commercial, 10% is institutional, and then 2% is other properties, which, for example, would include farmland. This is now a chart that shows you how the assessment changed over the last 10 years. In the bottom, you see the bars. And I would start with the bar chart. Dark blue, that's the residential assessment. So going all the way to the right, which is 2025, the residential assessment overall in the City of Winkler is just over $1.5 billion. Commercial is sitting around $600 million, and overall total assessment, what the city uses to levy their taxes against, is just shy of $2.5 billion. So that includes absolutely every property that we use to levy a tax against. I also like to take a moment now during this presentation. I know we call it a 2025 financial plan, but I also like to take a few minutes here now to talk a little bit further out than just 2025. I also like to mention the multi-year budget, which goes from 2025 to 2027. And this is the first year that we, as a City of Winkler, will talk about a multi-year budget. And we're quite excited about it. And we like to open up the window and we like to show the benefits of it. Why we are looking at a multi-year budget. Why are we not focusing in just on 2025, but actually 26 and 27? And if I would show you some of the information and data that goes into this, actually it goes way further out than just the 3 years. It goes up to 10 and even 20 years out. But you see now for 2025, to your left, you see a 4.2% tax increase. And this is now the tax increase that we will have for the City of Winkler. I should say this is the average tax increase that we will have for the City of Winkler for 2025. on average, or right now, based on the assumptions that we have, that will drop to 3.3 in the next year, and then also to 3.3 in 2027. If you average that out, you would be at a 3.6% tax increase over these 3 years. And how do we come up with, let's say, the 4.2%? You might ask the question, how do you come up with 4.2%? And that's in that little box in the left bottom corner, where you see, first of all, the consumer price index of 1.3%. We, as the city of Winkler, we use a rolling average from October of, this 1.3 is from October of 2023 to September of 2024. And if you would look at that consumer price index change over that period, you would come up with 1.3%. And that's what we used to, as a tax increase for 2025. But we also see a PBWC request of 0.9% on there as well. And last year, the city was approached, as were all municipalities that are owners of PBWC, for capital support of the Pembina Valley Water Co-op. And the city decided to levy that against the general taxes, which for 2025, that represents a 0.9% tax increase. But you can also see that there's a 1% tax increase for the debenture plan and asset management plan. And this is something that we are really excited about. And if you look at the debenture plan, what council decided to do, they decided to go 1% above the CPI rate for the next 3 years to support the debenture plan that was presented to them. And what does that mean? Right now, I should maybe go back a little bit into the past. The city of Winkler, in the history, what the city of Winkler has done is we used to have debentures up to 20 years. So that was the norm. That was the average of what we used to have. Debentures had a term of 20 years. And then after we built the exhibition center, we reduced it to 50. And this plan now, that you see now, reduces further to 10 years only. So from now on and going forward, the city of Winkler will have no debentures past 10 years. And I'm sure if you would look at home now at your personal mortgage, and if you would compare it, if you would reduce the term, you would see it makes a drastic change on the amount of interest you pay. The shorter the term becomes, the more goes towards principal, the less goes towards interest. And that's exactly the idea behind this debenture plan. That's exactly the savings that we see here at the city of Winkler now as well. So on the top box, you see that we reduced the debenture terms to 10 years. And this reduction of to the max of 10 years gives the city of Winkler a saving of $7.8 million. And I like to highlight on the next 5 capital projects alone. So if you play this out now and you say, well, obviously the city will be here for many more years and probably will have a lot more projects than just the next 5 that they have on the books, you can see that the savings keeps on growing and growing and growing. And that's why this debenture plan of putting 1% in for the next 3 years excites us so much, because we see the fruits literally when we look at the next project already and we say, we can save this amount of money and do not have to levy it onto the ratepayers, onto the taxpayers. The same thing with the asset management plan. So we are putting 1% above CPI towards the asset management plan to come to a point where we have a funded asset management plan. I will talk about asset management also on the next slide, but we have over $400 million in infrastructure replacement. Assets that the city of Winkler has to look after, including roads, sewer, water, buildings, equipment, and so on. And in order now to open this up to a 3-year, 10-year, 20-year window, gives us now the opportunity to better plan with these assets. To better say, let's say, if you know already that this road needs to be replaced, well, let's look at the sewer line below it. Maybe we should replace the sewer line with the road together and not do the road and later on rip up the road or open up the road again because the sewer line is failing. And this asset management plan gives you the picture now. Even though you might put a road in today, you know already it will be either needs some sort of renewal, it might need to be replaced. It's not if, it's just the question is when. And now we can plan for it because we have this plan. And we know what's coming down onto us, and we can prepare for it. And that's exactly what this 1% does. It supports us, it gets us ready for the future. It reduces the risk and it helps to improve our cost efficiency and gives us greater sustainability. And like I mentioned, this is now the chart where you can see our total infrastructure replacement value of almost $400 million. You can see how it's being divided up between buildings, parks, our water system, wastewater system, stormwater, our roads, and also our fleet and equipment. So it's a lot to look after, and that's exactly what this 1% goes towards to. So the next slide is talking about mill rates, and again it reflects and looks back to the last 10 years, and you can see that from the last 10 years our mill rate consistently went up in between, but overall it always had a little bit of a decrease. And you might look at this mill rate right now and say, why is the mill rate decreasing if you just talk about a 4.2% tax increase? And if you remember, I talked about it right at the beginning. I said this assessment increase for the city of Winkler. And that's exactly what the picture you need to combine. As assessment grows up, mill rate can go down, and the assessment times the mill rate gives you eventually the taxes or your budget. And that's exactly what we see here now. From last year, our mill rate was 13.967, where our assessment grew by almost 10%. So that's why we can reduce the mill rate to 13.315. So the blue, that's the City of Winkler mill rate, and then the orange line, that's the mill rate for the Garden Mill School Division, which had a slight increase from 12.06 to 12.18. Our total debt, we started this year with a 21.73 million debt balance, and you can see we have two debentures right now on our books, the wastewater treatment facility and our exhibition center. And at the end of this year, we will have a debt balance of 20.67 million. Average interest rate is sitting at 3.39%. So you can see that we will pay off over almost 1.4 million in debt in this year alone. So this is a chart that shows you how our budget, reserve, and debt changed, again, over the last 10 years. So I'd like to start with the green line, the debt line. You can see we were at roughly 5 million in 2016. Then we had a bit of a decrease till 2018. And in 2018, it had a big step up. And that's when we added the exhibition center debenture. And then we see another increase in 2020 to 2021. That's when we that's when we took on the debenture for the wastewater treatment facility. So we peaked at about 27 million in debt. And since then, we have paid off almost 7 million. So right now, as you saw in the slide before, we are just about at 20 million at the end of this year. Reserves and budget had a similar increase over these years. And you can see now for 2023, from that point on, that our reserves went down. And the main reason that is because of the large projects that we have on the books now. Talking about the wastewater treatment facility, water treatment plant, and also the arena renovation or redevelopment that we have right now. And even though we received grant money for these projects, even though we took out debentures for these projects are also supported by our reserves, and that's why you see a decrease now in our reserves because of it. Budget had an increase as well, but you might ask, why is it going down from 2024 to 2025? Especially since you're saying that we have a tax increase. And the reason for that is because about 39% of our total budget we are able to generate through other revenue, and we will talk about that in a little bit more detail in the next slides. And since our other revenue had a slight decrease, that's the reason we also saw a decrease in the total budget. Main decreases were land sales and investments through our financial institution. So this is the total budget for 2025. We're sitting at just above 28 million in this year. And like I said, 61% of that, out of the 28, is being levied onto the taxes, and 39% is being generated through other revenue, which totals over $11 million. And this is a breakdown of that $11 million. You can see that 750,000 comes in through investments, basically from the deposit rate at our financial institution. Then 500,000 on average comes in through added taxes, through building permits, assessment that is being added to our city of Winkler. Then we have just over 400,000 for protective fees and fines. This is mainly the amount that we have for our fire agreement with R.M. Stanley. Then we have about $4.5 million that we receive in grants and support from the province and from the federal government through police grants and the gas tax funding from the federal government and basket funding from the province. And then you have also $855,000 through recreational user fees. Other revenues are just over $1 million, which includes the revenues that we receive from MMSM and growers and some other miscellaneous amounts. And then you see sales of $3 million here, and this is again the amount we budgeted to generate through land sales. And even though they were signed last year, they're closing this year, so that's why that's still in the budget here as well. Again, this now looks, we just looked at the revenue side, this now looks at the expense side and just breaks it up into individual departments. You see again the same total budget number of $28.264 million, and then it starts with administration at the bottom, police, fire, transportation, and moves on, and you can see which portion is being spent on which department. And I like to highlight this only looks at the expense. Obviously you have a revenue side as well, and some departments, for example, police, since we're receiving a large grant from the province for policing, would offset the amount. So if you would look at the net cost for police for a tax break, it's a lot less than what technically this graph shows. But later on, when we will break it down for a tax break, I will show the net amount as well. This is the same information, it just shows it as a pie chart in percentages. And I mean, I just like you to look at it. Maybe one thing I like to highlight is maybe the transfer to reserves is 23%. And fiscal services, if you ask what that is mainly the amount that we have for our debenture payments. So overall, what does that mean to me? We talked about the mill rate rating, we talked about the average tax increase, which is at 4.2%, and we will now look at an example, at a residential example. So the assessment, let's say now if you would look at your tax bill and you would compare 2024 over 2025, obviously the first thing you would see that your assessment changed, and on average it will go up, as we mentioned before, just over 10%. So it increased from $300,000 to just $330,600. And on the residential side, 45% of that is taxable. So that shows you the apportioned amount on the second line. Then the portion amount you would take, you multiply that by the mill rate, which for 2025 is 13.315. You divide it by 1,000 and you come up with the municipal tax. And so if you compare the municipal tax from 2025 to 2024, you see a difference of $95.33. So this is on average on a residential bill. Could be more, could be less, because the assessment obviously changes differently for every house. This is an average amount. But on average, this is what people could expect on their tax bill if their assessment was around $300,000 in 2024. Then you have the waste fee below. That has not changed. Has stayed at the same amount at $160, and so the total municipal tax bill would be at $2,140.87 for a house that has a value of $330,000. On the bottom, you can also see our healthcare funding of $91. It is excluded from the percentage increase, and it does not change for 2025. I can actually say it might decrease. We're still working with the province. And since we added more properties in 2025, there's a very good chance this number will come down, but definitely will not go up. But if you compare now the total municipal tax from 2025 to 2024, you see a 5.06% increase. So slightly above the 4.2, as we mentioned before, since residential saw a larger assessment increase. So we can do the same thing on the commercial side. Same idea. Commercial had a lesser increase now in the assessment. It was just below 8%. But now on the commercial side, 65% is taxable. So that's your first line. You would multiply that by 65%. You would come up with your portion assessment. You multiply that with the new mill rate divided by 1,000, and that amount would give you then the total municipal tax. And if you would compare the total municipal tax now from 2025 to 2024, on average, again, you would see a 2.67% increase. So that's where it balances out. Commercially, roughly, you might see a 2.67. On the residential, as I showed before, it was 5.09. So at the end, we talked about a $95 change from 2024 to 2025. So you might say, what does that mean for me? Well, if you like to go to Tim Hortons, it's roughly 20 medium coffees plus a muffin every 20 times, or a 4-month Netflix subscription, or a dinner for 2 at a mid-range restaurant. So that's roughly what $95 would buy you today, or roughly what our tax increase for Winkler represents today. Here again, so we talked about what a ratepayer might have to pay, but what does the taxpayer actually receive back in services? And this is now breakdown of the net cost. Before I looked at the expense side, I looked at the revenue side. This looks at it now as a income combination, and it shows now what the ratepayer actually has to pay, what the levy would be on what we would levy onto the taxes. So 7% would be the city would levy for general government services, 6% for police services, 3% for fire services, and then 15% for transportation, 5% for planning and economic, 20% for community services, 16% for fiscal services, 5% for transport to reserves, and then 8% for waste disposal services. So that's roughly, when you look at your tax bill, this is the percentage that goes to each of the departments. So on the utility side, I'm sure you know that you receive a water bill every quarter, and your water bill does not go to your general tax, it goes to our utility budget. And the utility budget for 2025 is $4.572 million. And some of the capital projects that we have on the utility side is that we like to purchase a new vacuum truck. We do like to do some well replacements and some manhole restorations for a total budget of $1.47 million. Back to the general side, these are the 3 large projects that I already mentioned before. So we have the water treatment plant. All these projects are on the go. They have all been started already, but since they're so large, they go through multiple years. And so for the water treatment plant, total budget is $14.6 million. Wastewater treatment plant is $56.7 million, and Centennial Arena redevelopment is at $28.5 million. And these projects, as I mentioned before, are being funded through the benches that the City of Winkler took out, through grant support that we received from the federal and provincial government, through the reserves that we had saved up for these projects, but also some sponsorship money from local businesses. Some other projects are equipment purchases. In 2025, we plan to purchase a sand truck as well as an ARF truck for the fire department. We have also set aside $1.64 million for transportation and drainage, so that's a renewal of Main Street, some pathway renewals, and drainage work at Crystal Crescent, and some other minor projects as well. Total budget is $3.841 million for these capital projects. So that has brought me to the end of my presentation, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, feel free to ask council. Sure, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, David, for that explanation and bringing all of that work to a culmination here today. I will ask anybody that's here in gallery if they have questions. If you do have questions, make sure you ask the hard ones of David. Council will take the easy ones. Not seeing any. Council, do we have any clarification questions that you'd like to ask?
We've badgered him with so many questions up to this point, I think we should let him go now.
I just wanted to say, you know, kind of this is my first go around with all of this, and I just wanted to say how much I do appreciate the work that certainly that Jody and his team and David and his team do with preparing the budget. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to get to all these numbers, and I was very impressed to see that we were able to get to the point where we could get to a 15 and then a 10-year debenture plan. Obviously, you know, looking at my own financial position, and if we, you know, if I can move that number down a little bit, it certainly saves a lot of money as well. So I appreciate the work that's gone on there, and certainly appreciate the team. So thank you.
Excellent point. Until you see how much work goes into it, it's difficult to truly get a grasp of it. I'm most proud for how hard we've worked to make sure that we keep as close a shot on expenses as possible to give us these types of opportunities. If we weren't very aggressively managing our expenses, we would not be in this place today. So I want to thank Jody, you and your team, and David, the work that you've done together with all of the directors, all of the managers, all of the staff, to be able to get us to this place and to be where we are now. Be it resolved that the public hearing for the 2025 financial plan be closed. Mover.
Andrew?
Andrew got it. Marvin got the second. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the 2025 financial plan be approved. Mover.
Andrew?
Second.
Ryan?
Final thoughts?
Well, yes, certainly. There's a couple of things that I really appreciated in this last year planning. The fact that we're doing a multi-year plan, I think, speaks a lot to our long-term thinking, which is important, just as it is for our home area. And as Ryan already mentioned, like if you plan just for today, you might just say, well, okay, I get this much money, and if I want to lease a new car, I can lease it for this much money. But I don't think of the fact that this car will be worthless or have to trade it in or anything like that. So we're looking ahead at how it works, and that leads me into the second thought that I had, is the asset management plan is something that is just really, really good for us to do. As you mentioned earlier on, a lot of older cities, they have a challenge that without large amounts of input from higher orders of government, we'll never be able to get to the place that we are able to get to in terms of repairing streets and sewer and water. You look at the city of Winnipeg looking at multi-billion-dollar wastewater treatment facilities that they have to do, and so on. So that's good. And then I think through all that we can work on shortening our debenture time, just like for your home. I can either borrow it for 30 years and pay a minimum amount, or I can drop it down and then I can get it paid off, and I can raise assets so that I can in the future have power. And that's what the idea is of that. So we'll have power to do this for my children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Exactly. Excellent points. Thank you, Marvin. Any additional comments? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that tax levy bylaw number 2345-25 be given first reading. Mover.
Peter.
Second.
Don?
Again, this puts this on the floor. It allows the rest of the process to begin. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that public hearings be adjourned and regular council reconvene. Mover.
Michael?
Second.
Ryan?
All in favor? Carried. Takes us to other business. Be it resolved that council committee appointments be approved as per the attached list. Mover.
Andrew?
Second.
Don?
Again, we do this at midterm on a regular basis. We move some committees around and try to balance workload. This year, of course, with the addition of Ryan to this table, necessitated some additional moves. I thank each one of you for the productive conversations that we had around which committees you were going to be appointed to, which committees you were going to sit on. And I thank you for those conversations. I thank you for agreeing to serve in the committees that you have, and additionally serving your community outside of this table, also out in the greater community. Any questions or thoughts on the committee list as you see attached? All in favor? And that is carried. We have a community spotlight as well, but I think that one will be an in-camera presentation today. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if fully in camera, but just out, like, not social media camera, right? Like, not in the people that are in the room stay there.
Okay, on that note then, I will ask, do we need a resolution for that, Jody, to move at least the online part of our meeting in camera?
We could do that, yeah.
Okay. Be it resolved that we move the online portion of the community spotlight into camera. Mover?
On.
Second.
Michael?
All in favor? Carried. And Joey, I'll ask you to pause that then. And we are. That takes us to questions from the media or public relevant to today's meeting of council. None here yet. Nothing online. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned. Mover.
Andrew?
Second.
Brian?
All in favor? And we're done.